Coast. And you probably have heard about how it was goats that were credited with saving the Reagan Library in the last week or so in California. So just a quick couple things about goats. I call them their superpowers. And they're kind of the difference between machines and humans versus goats. So one of the things about goats that makes them really great for doing eco-friendly vegetation management is the fact that they can go where people and machines cannot go easily or safely. So they can climb steep hills. They can go in areas where there might be debris underneath the vegetation, such as kudzu, that would bung up a machine or that would injure an employee or potentially kill somebody if they rolled down a hill into a pond or such. We specialize in things such as stormwater retention pond maintenance, invasive species management, crime control, believe it or not, crime prevention, and working for schools, airports, and those kinds of things. One of the other things that's really amazing about goats, and most people don't know this, is that they sterilize the seeds in their digestive process. So they're actually dealing with the problem from the ground up and under the ground up and getting rid of the plant's ability to spread. And over time, that can really start to inhibit the ability of plants and invasive species in particular to come back. The other thing about them that are really great for cities and businesses and things like that is that they're really popular. People love them, and they're great PR. Everybody loves goats and they love seeing them at work. So those are kind of the main things. They're also incredibly cost effective in many applications. Not so much if you can mow it, but if you can't mow it and it's brush, goats are a great way to go. They just kind of munch their way through everything and get rid of it, and it doesn't grow anything from there. So that's pretty much what we're about, and we just wanted to give you all the opportunity to think about using goats in the future, think outside the box, and something that's really kind of taking hold across the United States is this new and growing fledgling industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is BJ Mixick. Did I say your name right? I hope I did. Thank you.
My name is BJ Mixick, and I live in Woodlawn, Tennessee. We have certain expectations of our county government, and nowhere do we see that it is the job of the government to provide entertainment venues. The very word capitalism upon which our country was founded suggests that smaller government is what we need. In a capitalistic society, entertainment venues should be executed by a private enterprise. Our county must grow with a healthy, solid, structured plan in place that provides education, security, protection, and proper infrastructure without inflicting undue burden upon the citizens. We must have written plans and agreements benefiting all people. Some people are under the misconception that the majority want this event center. In my findings, after speaking with hundreds of people, this is not accurate. Over 90% of the people that I have talked to on the street know nothing about this project. And when I do speak with them, they want the right to have a say with their vote on whether or not this should be funded with a general bond. Make no mistake, I am not saying I'm against an event center, but what I am against is a center that is government funded. During the week of October 14th, I attended a few public meetings with the mayor and the county commissioners and observed a plan in place for the impact. And it looks good on paper, but there are many variables that could cause the plan to crumble. The plan is now designed to cost $130.7 million. Supposedly with the guarantee it will succeed without burdening the taxpayer. That total comes to $138.2 million, including the land for the site. And since you are requesting a general bond for this project, the statement of not burdening the taxpayer is a misconception. As stated in the agenda for tonight's informal meeting under source of payment, page 43, section 5, should this venture fall short of the necessary funding over the life of the building, you as commissioners are mandated by law to get the money through ad valorem taxes, property taxes, wheel taxes, and whatever it takes. An example of this is the failed event center in Evansville, Indiana, which is now $9 million in debt, and the taxpayer is now picking up the tab each year. Some commissioners have stated that it is the fault of previous commissions that Montgomery County is in the mess as it is today because they refuse to fund growth, and that is why we are feeling the pains. But understand that if more taxes fall on our shoulders from the failure of this center, you will be the commissioners who will be blamed for putting us further in debt and causing our cost of living expenses to explode, our infrastructure to crumble even more, and our schools to suffer. So I urge you, please allow the taxpayers to weigh both sides and make their own decision on whether or not they want to commit for the general bonds without a signed contract. It is their right and your obligation to serve all of your public in their best interest. Please support a referendum vote on March 2020 ballot.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Stephen Curry.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Stephen Curry, and I live out in Woodlawn. I'm with the Residents for Effective Government. We recently paid for a telephone survey poll about the now $130 million event center bonds on the ballot. I have given the mayor and the commissioners a press release issued by PMI, the company that did the poll for us. I want to quote directly from that press release. Of the 20,328 households called, a total of 1,151 participated in the one-question survey. 980 people said they support putting the issue on the ballot. That's 85% of the people that were polled. 171 people, 15%, opposed putting the issue on the ballot. There was an overwhelming support of being allowed to vote on this project and putting it on the ballot, said Jerry Dorchuk, president of PMI. Very seldom do you have such support to put an issue on the ballot to spend $130 million, added Dorchuk. And with such participation in the actual survey itself, the fact that so many people actually participated in the survey shows how emotional this issue is in the community. If I was a member of the commission who decided to put this on the ballot or not, I wouldn't hesitate a second to do so, or potentially face an angry electorate when running for re-election, Dorchuk continued. End of quote. We are asking the commissioners to put this issue on the ballot. I would also like to bring up a couple of things the mayor said in recent Leaf Chronicle articles. In the 916 issue, the mayor insisted that the cost would not go over $105 million. But barely a month later, in the 922 issue, we learned that the new cost is now $130 million for the bonds. How high will the cost go for this event center? In the same article, he said, those revenue streams are mostly exclusive to the MPEC and couldn't be generated or used elsewhere, he emphasizes, including a new funding source, internet sales taxes. End quote. The revenue streams to pay for the bonds have always been described as 1/3 coming from hotel taxes, 1/3 coming from IDB pilot money, which is now up to $2.6 million, and 1/3 being generated from revenues of the event center. All of the hotel taxes, IDB pilot money, and even internet sales taxes could be directed to other uses if the event center is not built. I don't know how the mayor defines most, but when I went to school, 2/3 was twice as much as 1/3. So most of the money is not exclusive to the event center. Why did the mayor say that it is? And why is the county using $7 million in borrowed bond money to pay the interest payments during the construction period? Why aren't you using the hotel motel taxes or the IDBP money?
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Mr. Carl Eisman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to say my piece. My name is Carl Eisman. I live out in Woodlawn where we get to smell the landfill. I'm not totally against the construction of the MPEC. However, it has been described as the largest project the county has ever undertaken, and hence I think it demands a vote by the electorate. We have seen a steady push of articles that have extolled the need for the multi-purpose center and how it will rejuvenate the downtown business district. Downtown is now primarily government and finance and legal. The real economic engines of this county are Fort Campbell, the industrial complex, and the Governor's Square retail area. Should the county be responsible for propping up private businesses? However, the whole story has not been put forward. The Evansville community has been mentioned with their Ford Center. Ford Center was built in 2011. Except for the first 2 months of its operation, it has operated in the red. Evansville has had to cough up between $400,000 and $700,000 annually to meet operating expenses. That's not counting the $8 million annual debt payment. Okay, it also says that the basketball from Evansville University isn't going to use it anymore. Basketball. Austin Peay is named as a primary partner for this event center. According to the Leaf Chronicle, the Dunn Center at Austin Peay can seat 8,000. The APSU basketball attendance has been running at 1,000 to 2,000. To say that APSU needs a bigger venue is a big stretch and probably a waste of taxpayer money. On the architect's concept that shows multi-story parking garages that are on the property owned by the owner of the hotel and the city of Clarksville. Are these things going to be added to the MPEC to increase the cost of the MPEC? Also, has anybody considered that the fact that Clarksville cannot handle the sewage that's created downtown because they haven't been able to fix the sewage facility on the Red River since the flood of 2010? If the proposed revenue stream fails, as it did in Evansville, our children and grandchildren, yours, will be responsible for the debt you put them in. Recently, our taxes increased to cover non-essential niceties. We would have to increase additional taxes to make the payment. You, Mr. Mayor, and the commissioners have been hired by the county and the citizens to conduct normal daily business. Launching into the largest capital expenditure in the history of the county is not, I believe, normal business. Before the final commission vote, conduct forums in every district in the county. Put the issue on the scheduled March primary or August general election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time.
Miss Brenda Radford.
Good evening, Mayor and Montgomery County Commission. My name is Brenda Radford. It is my understanding the county mayor is telling county taxpayers that they did not receive a property tax increase for the year 2019. As a friend of the taxpayer since 1975 and Montgomery County trustee from 2006 to 2018, I assure you the county taxpayers are very smart. We, the taxpayers of Montgomery County, received a 42-cent property tax rate increase from the state certified rate of $252 revenue neutral amount. It is reflected on your county property tax statement that you just received in the mail. It is the largest property tax rate increase in the county's over 200-year history. On one of my property tax statements on the county trustee's office website parcel history page, I find that with only reappraisal and property tax rate increases, my property tax amount increased 58% by looking at the record decade over decade tax amounts due. As a taxpayer, I don't want one penny of my county tax dollars going toward paying for a multi-event purpose event center when I know more schools and other state mandated infrastructure needs to be built and improved over the next 30 years. As the county trustee who invested the county's idle funds during the Great Recession, I can assure the elderly, disabled veteran, and all the taxpayers that if this resolution 5 and 6 is passed, a large portion of their property tax payments will be allocated to the county's debt service to pay for the event center for 30 plus years. It won't matter if there is another worldwide Great Depression that occurred in the roaring 2020s or 1920s to 1930s, but I'm referencing the 1920s and the 1930s. We don't know what the future holds, or a default of many tax payments by the property taxpayers. We may be set up for an economic catastrophe like other cities in our country, like Birmingham, Alabama, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the state of Arkansas, or Michigan. Will you be among the county commissioners that should have known better but ignored signs, voted for, and strapped Montgomery County taxpayers, your friends and neighbors, down with over $130,700,000 worth of debt when the Montgomery County needs to build about $140 million
Thank you, Ms.
in
Radford.
school buildings
Ms.
over the next
Radford.
5 years? I ask you to
Ms.
let the
Radford,
people vote
please
or
respect
vote
the
no.
rules. Please respect the rules. Thank you. Mr. Sterling Hilmo. I understand we're good on the microphones now.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Sterling Hilmo. I live in Clarksville, District 12. I know I'm just one of several folks up here tonight speaking about this multi-purpose event center. Some are for it, some aren't for it. I want to start by saying I want an event center. I think it comes with a lot of great things. We could, have games there, motocross events, maybe some concerts. We don't have to deal with Nashville traffic. It's going to drive a lot of business downtown. That's great. That's great. But when the commission votes on Resolution 1911-5 and 1911-6, they're not voting for an event center. They're voting to authorize the county to borrow $130 million. That's what those resolutions are about. It's not about the event center. Many of us speaking tonight believe this should be put on a referendum. Let people vote whether or not they agree with this much debt. Let me give you some reasons why it should be put to a vote. All right, Section 5 of that resolution, 1911-6, it was already mentioned. It reads, the bonds shall be payable from unlimited ad valorem taxes to be levied on all taxable property within the county. For the prompt payment of the principal of premium, if any, and interest on the bonds, the full faith and credit of the county are hereby irrevocably pledged. So the bonds are payable from unlimited ad valorem on this resolution. That's what it says in black and white. That's what it says. So that means that they can tax our property unlimited. They stated unlimited. So according to the resolution, any property owner within the county can be taxed without limit on payment of $130 million of debt. So shouldn't the residents have a say in this? If the possibility is they're going to have their taxes raised because it says unlimited ad valorem, shouldn't they have a say? Just let them vote on it. It also states the full faith and credit of the county are hereby irrevocably pledged. Are the residents of the county, are they not the county? Let them vote. For the residents to pledge full faith and credit, they should have a say. After all, once pledged, they may be taxed without limit, and the pledge is irrevocable. Payments on these bonds continues even after all the elected officials here are gone. The payments keep going. Residents will be here. We'll still be paying for it. Our kids will be paying for it. Maybe our grandkids will be paying for it. But residents, we get to keep paying. So shouldn't we have a say in something that may be irrevocable? All right, the second section of that paragraph, or that section 5, it says the bond shall be additionally payable from, but not secured by, certain revenues derived from the operation of the project, including but not limited to seat fees, sales taxes, internet tax, sales tax within the county, certain payments in lieu of taxes, those are the pilot payments people talked about, related to economic development issued by the Clarksville Montgomery County Industrial Development Board, and any other revenues identified and properly applied to the payment of the bonds. So the second half sounds like we're going to get some money for nothing. Streams of money are going to come in from somewhere and residents don't have to cover it, but that's not true, because every dollar spent by the county comes with an opportunity cost, the cost of not spending it somewhere else. As an example, we know we need $140 million to expand schools just to meet current needs. We need that. Think about that. Send it to referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Josh Ward.
I want to speak to you tonight from the perspective of a commercial leasing agent. I lease property all over the community, primarily in downtown Clarksville. 2 years ago, the building at 128 North 2nd, adjacent to the proposed convention center, had about 7 tenants. That would include the Regions Bank, Marsha Blackburn at the time, and a few others. 2 years from that point in time, just 2 years from then, we now have 27 tenants. A lot of those people are multi-person office suites. And in every business transaction that I've done, I've talked about the convention center. I've pulled up the renderings on my phone and we've looked at it, and they all say, that would be awesome. We would support it. We would love to leave work and go to a minor league Preds game or a concert. This would be a great move for the community. Not only did we grow from 7 to 27 in just 2 years, but the Leaf Chronicle building at 200 Commerce has doubled in size in 2 years. And that's not even the most exciting part. The most exciting part is that we're building 16 new office suites to accommodate the growth of downtown Clarksville. For those of you that don't think downtown is growing, I'm here to tell you I'm the boots on the ground. I've seen it, I know it, I interact with the people every single day. And we're living in a moment in time in Clarksville where we need to capitalize on the momentum. We've got tremendous momentum, tremendous growth, and now is the time to seize the opportunity. I believe we've taken a lot of small steps in revitalizing downtown. My boss has invested in downtown property, and there's been a lot of great moves. But if we can get this convention center done, we will not only take a step forward, we will take a large leap. Businesses will prosper, new businesses will pop up, our children will have something to do. This goes beyond just what we want. This goes to the next generation who can have events and opportunities and entertainment. I think gone are the days where we export our entertainment to Nashville. It used to be 45 minutes down the road to get there. Now it's an hour and a half, 2 hours with traffic. And if we truly want to be Tennessee's top city, then we have to take a risk. We have to take a leap of faith. We have to invest in the next generation. This isn't a debt. This is an investment into our future. I want to live in a city where my children have stuff to do, where there's opportunity. And I think right now we're in this interesting tension. It's an identity crisis. Some people want to grow, some people don't. But I want to live in a city that's prosperous and thriving and open to new opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Dr. Alicia White and Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Ms. Robinson is Vice President for Finance and Administration at Austin Peay, and I've got a homecoming event in a few minutes, so if we get stuck in the middle of this, he's going to take over. The impact is something that's important to Austin Peay. It provides an opportunity that would really be good for us, and there are 4 points that I want to go over really briefly. One is that we did a pro forma to see what would the cost to Austin Peay be to build a new facility or to lease space in the impact. And I heard the gentleman say this morning that we don't, or a few minutes ago, that we don't need a bigger property for basketball, and that's actually true. But the Dunn Center is fully subscribed now because it's also used for health and human performance classes on the floor. It's used for volleyball. It's used by our growing student body because Student Life and Leadership programs that for a lot of student activities because we don't have a lot of other spaces on campus. So that building is busy all the time, and we have a hard time even getting the people in to use it who want to use it. So the cost to build would exceed the cost to us to lease. If we were to build our own facility, it also would not be a multipurpose event center. It would only be a basketball facility, which means that we could not host the kinds of events that could be hosted downtown. And I appreciate what Josh said, because I have kids who are from Clarksville who come to Austin Peay and they invest in Austin Peay. They graduate here, they work here. But some folks want to move away because there's nothing, they think there's nothing to do here. I've been in towns where the kids all left and they didn't come back. We don't want that kind of situation for Clarksville, Montgomery County. We want everyone who wants a vibrant life to be able to have that right here in Clarksville, Tennessee, without having to move. And so that's something that's my second point. My third point is not only would the opportunity be good financially for Austin Peay, but Austin Peay would help pay for the multipurpose event center because we would have a 30-year lease that would have to be approved by our Board of Trustees, the state architect, and the State Building Commission, but we're working on those things now because the winds of state government blow very slowly, but we have done our due diligence and we're working through that process now. But we will pay a considerable amount of money, that's guaranteed money, to help support the funding of this opportunity. And then fourth, we do understand that the county has the ability to put this at the interstate or wherever they want to do it. But the only way that Austin Peay can participate is if it's close to campus. We have students who don't have cars. We also don't want issues with students coming back and forth to the interstate, and we don't want to have any situations where our students can't avail themselves of other opportunities besides basketball. So we want those students to be able to have a vibrant life by walking across the street. And so Austin Peay benefits by being situated in this community. The community benefits by having Austin Peay as part of it, and we need to work together to grow.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Barry Smitto.
Barry Smitto, 24020 Old Ashland City Road.
Hey, Barry,
Barry Smitto, 2402 Old Ashland City Road. Here's why we need more citizens involved in all levels of government. In 2006, a complaint I filed led to the federal indictment and conviction of State Senator John Ford. I learned in Tennessee the lobbyists have lobbyists, and the lobbyists for the lobbyist have a lobbyist. They control most of what occurs on Capitol Hill. I have no legal experience, but in 2008, while I was having internal eye cancer surgeries, federal Judge Bryant wrote that I had more than sufficiently alleged fraud against MetLife. The FBI and DOJ refused to seek prosecution, even though I found quotes from numerous federal judges across the U.S. that proves while the patients waited for court resolutions, their lives were in danger because MetLife ignored medical conditions, lied repeatedly in court documents, and much more. I provided evidence to every current congressional rep who represents Montgomery County, and I also spoke with them in person. They've done nothing, even though many citizens requested action. You can see the judges' quotes and much more at my website, seekingjustice.net. A friend I met while rescuing cats here joined me to the Residents for Effective Government page. I learned the Industrial Development Board, known as the IDB, has powerful local people who meet in private with industries and give them huge tax breaks to come here. They're bringing Atlas BX here with the lead acid plume hovering in the air right beside residences and near schools. The deal was signed before residents had knowledge of this. They were very mad at the town hall, but it was too late. Deborah Moore goes to every IDB meeting. She said the IDB's telling everyone they're bringing new industries here to create jobs for us, but then they sought a grant to bring more people here because there's not enough people for the jobs they're creating. The Chamber of Commerce shares a website with the Industrial Development Board. It says they're in a partnership with the IDB. It was Chamber of Commerce leadership who wrote a letter causing the Consolidation Charter Commission to be formed. They presented a written plan that said the goal is to position county voters against city voters, vice versa, while pushing vote yes as a solution to their problems with one another. That's the same chamber that partners with the IDB that's bringing Atlas BX here with its lead acid plume. You can see much more about this at mocotn.org. Some of the same businessmen who are very connected to the push for taxpayers going into debt for an event center also gave large sums of money to the PAC. They mailed advertisements to many residents with the goal of positioning us against each other during consolidation. We're $300 million in debt. We have 106 portable classrooms that can't be locked down in emergency. Many of us are very concerned about allowing the same people who try to position us against each other to put us further in debt for an event center.
Thank you, Mr. Smitto. Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott Comperry.
I obviously am in support of the event center. There's a lot of people here tonight in support of the event center. It's going to be a great economic impact to our town. It's not just here. It's not just us here in Clarksville. We got so many people from all the states in America that are here because of Fort Campbell. We have nothing for them to do. We have nothing going on but go to the bar and drink, I guess. Go out to eat. We got plenty of that, but, you know, we need something more about it. As far as the referendum vote, I'm going to directly speak to every one of you commissioners. You are elected by a body of people that entrusted you. That's why this thing should never go to referendum, because you guys have been entrusted by the people already. Don't escape your responsibility by not voting on this. It is your responsibility, period. Everybody that's in favor of the event center, please stand up. Can we stand up? There's a poll. Mr. Josh Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Compere. We'll now call our informal session to order. We have two presentations, one by Powers Management. I think Mr. Sean Henry is here. Good evening. If you would, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sean Henry. I'm the CEO of the Nashville Predators, Bridgestone Arena, Ford Ice Center Antioch, Ford Ice Center Bellevue. Just want to say thank you for letting me come out today. Ideally, I can answer any questions you have about what we think we create with this event center. If I can't, the two gentlemen behind me, I think, can. Vice President of Business Operations, Kyle Clayton, and Danny Butler, our Vice President of Facilities for both Ford Ice Centers and our events. We're really proud of what we built with the Nashville Predators. We were named the #1 sports franchise in all sports a few years ago, and we've kept that title ever since. From an arena standpoint, we win Arena of the Year virtually every year for the past 6, 7, 8, or 9 years. And we like those things. We like those accolades. But what we like a lot more is what we're given credit for, and that is taking Bridgestone Arena from the 40, 45th, 50th busiest building in the country to one of the 4, 5, or 6 busiest venues in the country. It's one of the busiest venues in the world, and we've done that by being aggressive. We know that what we can do for a community is drive economic development. When you think about what Broadway looked like before that building was built and what it looks like today, Nashville transformed around the busyness of our venue. And then you look at the Ford Ice Centers. When Mayor Carl Dean at the time approached us, let's build an ice center together. Let's do something to give kids something to do. Let's put it in a part of the community where everything's been going the wrong way for too many years. And let's do something really special. Let's create another economic engine, just like Bridgestone Arena. Let's put it over in Antioch. That's what we did. We had no idea how busy it was going to be. Turned out it's the busiest ice rink in America, in Antioch, Tennessee. We went from leasing commercial real estate for 0 rent a month to now you have businesses opening, you have thousands of jobs relocating there. At the same time, we were working on Ford Ice Center Bellevue. Bellevue is a little bit different than Antioch. Another closed mall. Things were going the wrong direction. We became the first and last domino of the new development of One Bellevue Place. We just opened last week, and I think we're going to be on pace to be the second busiest ice rink in America. So the two busiest rinks in the country are right here in Tennessee. What we do and what we get credit for, we want to win a Stanley Cup. We want to chase that to the ends of the earth. We want to be the best venue in America. We want to be as busy as we can be. But all that pales in comparison to what we drive from an economic impact standpoint. That excites us. When the mayor and I started talking about this probably 4 or 5 years ago, it was, could we build an ice center in Clarksville? And then it was, could we work with Austin Peay to build a small arena and 2 sheets of ice in Clarksville, and can we do the same things for it? What's exciting about it is when you look at Austin Peay's basketball schedule, it's 30 to 35 events or basketball games. We think we can do another 40, 45, 50 events above and beyond that. And for most arenas, that's a lot of events. You know, it's 65, 75, 85, 90 event nights a year. But by combining the 2 sheets of ice with it, you have 365 days of activity a year. And we'll have 1 to 2 hockey tournaments a month, which normally bring 20 to 30 teams, which bring about 90 to 150 people to the city for 4 or 5 days. That's, you know, stay in hotels. We'll generate between 40 and 50,000 hotel room nights just through those hockey tournaments, our hockey clinics, and then, of course, the events themselves. So by having 2 sheets of ice attached or built within the arena, you're not just doing 60, 70, 80, 90 event nights a year. You're creating something a little bit bigger, more special that we can all be proud of. And there's no doubt about it. The economic impact that will follow the construction of this event center is something that we're going to be talking about in the next city, saying, look what we did in Nashville, in Antioch, in Bellevue, in Clarksville. And that really does excite us. There's a selfish part of this. There's no doubt about it. Every time we built one of these, we get a few more kids playing hockey. We get a few more kids doing a little bit more activities that keeps them busy. And make no doubt about it, you give a child a good choice, they're going to make a good choice every single time. And there are too many things that can distract our kids today. Youth sports, whether you're a young lady or a young man, they will take you the rest of your life. Grades are better. Everything follows a better outcome when we're getting kids a little bit more involved in things. We have an opportunity to do that while also changing the community. So I just want to say thank you for letting us be here. Thanks for letting us be involved for the past few years. And we'd love to answer any questions you have, or try to answer any questions you have.
Commissioners, we're going to swap mics and let Mr. Henry use this one so we can take that one around. And if you'll just raise your hand, if you have a question, I'll call on you.
Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you coming to give us a presentation. I do have a couple of questions for you. My first question is, can you tell us just last year what the Bridgestone's financials look like?
Yeah, so our consolidated financials between the standalone financials of Bridgestone Arena, I think Bridgestone Arena's operations lost $3.9 million, but a lot of that has to do with the lease that was in place at the time between the Predators and the arena, where the arena covers all the event costs for that. If you back that away, you'll be closer to break even. Since last year, we signed a new 30-year lease with the city of Nashville. Pretty excited about that. Not too many buildings are signing new leases, looking forward 30 years in a 20-year-old building, but it completely unburdens any responsibility from the city of Nashville to take on any of the losses. But if we were fortunate enough to turn it into a profit, there's some sharing involved.
And that was actually going to be my next question. I appreciate you answering that. So up until last year, the Bridgestone operated at a loss, and Metro taxpayers had to subsidize that loss.
No, it actually was generated out of a seat use tax. It was a great acronym. It's SUC tax, seat use charge, where there was a fee attached to each ticket sale. And then the way the arrangement worked between the city and the state, some of the sales tax generated within the walls of Bridgestone Arena were redirected back in to pay some of those expenses.
Okay, thank you. So based on my research that I have seen, it looks like in 2017, you guys had $12.8 million in revenue versus $17.8 million in expenses, which matches up what you just told me. And
That makes me very happy. I knew that off the top of my head.
Correct, good job. And you were projecting a $5 million loss again last year, right? So my next question is, how will you determine which events you book at the Bridgestone versus booking here in Clarksville?
There'll never be any competition between Bridgestone Arena and whatever we call this great event center. Bridgestone Arena could do concerts for up to 19,000 people. Could do basketball events for up to 20,000 people. We locked in the SEC basketball tournament through 2035. The SEC basketball tournament can't play in a facility of 5 to 6 or 6,500 seats. There aren't any concerts that we'll ever say, wow, where should we play this one? Should we play it in Clarksville or should we play it in Nashville? There will be some events from time to time, a lot of family shows that will play in both venues, and it almost is a second touring act. A lot of family shows tour with two sizes of events, Sesame Street Live, Globetrotters, some of the Feld Entertainment shows, motocross, truck pulls, that sort of thing. So you can do a double play in there. You might play off-season, one in the spring, one in the fall. There'll be a few instances here or there, not very often, probably 2 or 3 times a year, that an opening act for one of the main plays at Bridgestone Arena would be a main act in Clarksville Event Center. But again, that would only happen when you have the time between the tours. But these will be events that normally would play in Nashville, perhaps at the amphitheater, which holds 6,000 seats, or one of the 3,000 or 4,000 person clubs, which in Nashville. That's where we have an opportunity to work with our national touring contacts to actually book Nashville in that venue, but then also up in Clarksville. And again, not against each other, but really in complementary fashion to each other. When you have a show that could play 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 seats, it's always better to be able to couple it with at least one other city from a touring standpoint.
Okay, thank you. And one final question. Have you actually signed a final contract with Montgomery County yet?
We don't have a final contract. We have a consulting agreement right now for design input and, I guess, event planning. I defer to you a little bit. I've been known not to read everything I've signed. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Sean Henry.
Mr. Henry, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Thank you and your staff. I am the county commissioner and I represent the downtown area. And I appreciate you all investing in this area. I think it's going to be something great for our constituents, particularly those who live in my area who are of a lower income. So I thank you all for doing that and investing in this area. My question and concern for you is, what other, I guess, programs and things that you have where you will be a good neighbor for the people who I represent in District 5? I don't want them to be jobbed out of this event center. I do want them to be working and being able to use the facilities. So do you have any plans of that in place?
Well, if we're fortunate enough to partner and operate the arena that you build, you won't find a better neighbor. I mean, we're lauded throughout our industry, throughout the country, for what we do from a community standpoint, our involvement, our engagement, our job development, our internship programs, our mentoring programs. There is not a more active foundation than Nashville Predator Foundation in Middle Tennessee in all sports, bar none. From a job creation standpoint, that's what this is. This is an economic engine within our walls and then externally for those that are coming to the events, coming to our hockey tournaments, our weekends, youth tournaments, that sort of thing. The best thing that I could leave you with about being a good neighbor is I started when I was 14 years old in this industry as a busboy. I'm the CEO of our company right now. Danny Butler started as a part-time vendor in Greenville, South Carolina. He's vice president with our company right now. Kyle started when he was in high school with the Nashville Predators as a part-time employee. Labor development is everything we do. It's what you want to do. It's what you want to be about. So I think you're looking at 3 pretty good examples of embracing those entry-level jobs and then taking it right through junior high, high school, college, into what I think is a pretty decent career so far.
Okay. Thank you again for being here and looking at District 5. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Henry? Commissioner Gannon?
Thank you, Mr. Henry. I don't know if this works or not, but I'll use the microphone. I hope we beat the Red Wings tonight.
You know, it's on right now. It's killing me that my phone's not out of my pocket. Does anyone have a score update, by the way?
1-0. 1-0.
Who?
Detroit. Detroit scored first.
You guys are all bad luck.
I just want to clarify what you said before on the seat charge and the sales tax being held within the stadium. That helped allow you to break even or get you closer to break even or set you over the top? What did you went through it so fast? I just wanted to clarify.
The seat use charge is literally a addition that we put on top of every ticket sale, and that is redirected to the city to pay bonds upon Bridgestone Arena. A second fee was put on a capital improvement fund, or SIF, that was used for certain improvements put on, so built off the users of the building, not general funds at all. And then the sales tax recapture, I think is the proper term for it, that also was returned to the city to invest in a few different things, but one of them was the cost of operations within the arena. It didn't come to us directly. They were a middleman.
And then just one more question, if you know, for economic driver, if you will. Do you know what the sales tax around the arena, what the arena generates for the Nashville community?
Yeah, so within our walls, just within Bridgestone Arena last year, we generated about $18 million in sales tax. Off that $18 million activity within our walls, we just updated our economic impact study. We last did it 6 years ago. It was $450 million. Today it's six. I like to round up. Good thing Kyle's here. It's $570 million now. And that is just pure economic impact. It's using a multiplier of, I think, 2.1 or 2.3 times. In economic impact studies, you use a multiplier of 2.1 times to 13 times. We always choose to use the lowest acceptable multiplier, so no one could really challenge those numbers. There will be some people from time to time, specifically a former professor from Vanderbilt, that would say there is no economic impact because everyone that would come to that arena would go bowling instead. They go to movies instead. And maybe he's right. I mean, I don't go bowling that often, but perhaps. But there's no doubt about it, if you did go bowling or went to restaurants or went to movies, you would do so where you live. So you take Nashville, for example, where we are, and Clarksville as well, sitting right on the border of another state. In Nashville, about 25% of all of our tickets, or I'm sorry, 15% of all of our tickets are sold outside of the state. 75% of all of our tickets are sold outside of the county. So the economic impact is pure. It's coming into the county or it's coming into the state. So you'd have a very similar ripple effect because of where we're situated from a location standpoint. And that's what you want. There are certain venues that are placed in the middle of a state that are, it's not easy to travel in and out of, that doesn't have the same type of pure economic impact. So it's truly powerful what can be created. And again, all you have to think back to is 25 years ago, what downtown Nashville looked like then and what it looks like now. When Mayor Bredesen decided to buy Civic Furniture, the idea was to create something special that would improve every other facet of life in Nashville. And I think it's proved out to be a pretty good study in urban planning.
Thank you.
Nice tie, by the way.
Thank you.
What's the score now?
Still 1-0. Got no updates yet.
Commissioner Harper, did you have a question? Any other questions? Mr. Henry, I know you want to go watch the game, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you all letting me do this.
Thank you both for being here.
We now have a hotel motel update from our trustee, Ms. Wiggins.
Good evening to each of you. Good evening, Mayor, and to our honorable commission. Wanted to come before you tonight as we promised each quarter that we're going to be transparent and accountable to you. And so we've done that since we came into office a year ago. Tonight we have our partners. We appreciate the support. Stone, Rudolph, and Henry is now completing our hotel motel audits for us. And so Ben Carroll is here and he will give us the update. For those, I know you've looked at your packet, but it's pages 14 through 17. You have the written report, but we wanted to make sure that we're available to answer any questions and for him to give us a highlight.
Good evening. My name is Ben Carroll, and I'm one of the principals with the local firm Stone, Rudolph, and Henry, a CPA firm. We have been engaged by the trustee's office to assist them with the local hotel motel tax audit. We have recently completed the first quarter of 2019. And so we've taken the local hotel and motels and divided them into basically 25% that we're going to review each quarter. So then during the course of an entire fiscal period, we would have reviewed all of the local hotel and motels. And so during the first quarter, we reviewed 14. Of those 14, 4 of the hotels did not provide us complete information in time for us to report to you guys this evening. So we have pushed forward those 4 of those into the next quarter. And so we'll follow up with you guys quarterly, include those with our next quarter's information when we report back to you. So if you look on page, I assume it's page 17, then of the information you have is a summary of the hotels and motels that we reviewed during the first quarter, as well as any deficiencies or adjustments that we noted that were needed among the tax collected for each of the months, January, February, and March. And so I think of the 10 we ultimately reviewed, 4 of them had deficiencies in each of the months, January through March, totaling a difference of somewhere between $386 to $522 in March, so a range there. So there were differences noted each month. We would expect probably some additional differences in the ones that actually pushed forward. That's where we was getting the additional information going to next period. But if anybody has any questions regarding the ones we reviewed or any of the information included in our report, we'll be glad to address those.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Tyndall? We now have our zoning resolutions. Our first one is CZ 16, 2019, application of Patricia G. Stockdale Woodard from AG to E1. Mr. Tyndall.
Yeah, this is one of those nights I wish I had a third arm and I can work everything up here. Our first application tonight, CZ 16, 2019. It's a request to go from agriculture to E1. It's 1.43 acres, as you remember. Agriculture zone requires 1.5 acres. So this is one of those instances where we are have an applicant who's asking for compliance. It's the application of Patricia Stockdale Woodard. It is not an extension of the zoning classification. The property fronts Indian Creek Road, 1,590 feet east of Indian Creek Road and Bend Sensing Road intersections. It's in County Commission District 6. Statements by the applicant is, I would like to put a brand new double wide with foundation on the property, removing the existing single wide. I'll be living here with my husband. This is a great area. I was born and raised. I have deep roots with my family, and my family has lived here for over 100 years. It's in the rural area. We received no comments or concerns from other county offices or departments. Here as it is, right on the edge of the county, on the south side there. You see it's dominantly agricultural around it. There's an EM lot right adjacent to it. Here it is as you approach the property on Indian Creek Road. And here's the property in question right here with the single wide that'll be removed and replaced with a double wide on foundation. It's the property adjacent to it. Pretty rural area down there. Staff recommends approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The existing tract is just short of the 1.5 acre requirement for ag property to obtain a building permit. Approval of the E1 zoning classification will permit this construction of a single family residence. Adequate infrastructure serves the site and no adverse environmental effects or issues were identified with this request, and Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Any questions of Mr. Tyndall on CZ 16, 2019? Mr. Tyndall, I'm going to let you do the next one as well, and then we'll do the public hearing just because of the microphone situation.
Sure thing.
So next is CZ 17, 2019, application of Neely Revocable Living Trust, Edwin and Charity Neely from AG to C2.
Yeah, this is 2.53 acres going from ag to commercial to C2. It is not an extension of the zoning classification. The property fronts the west frontage of Oak Plains Road, 660 feet north of Oak Plains Road and Old Clarksville Pike intersection. It's in County Commission District 3. It's a current level grass tract, and the applicant's intended use is to allow for the construction of a contractor shop. It is in the rural area. Here it is out on Oak Plains Road, down near the Cheatham County line. If it's not colored here, it's obviously in the other county. You can see the area is dominated by agriculture with some E1, E1A in the area, and one small C2. If you're familiar with the company Stinky Pinky, that's where that's located. Here's the property in question as you go down Oak Plains Road. You can just see the TVA lines overhead. Here's the property on the left. This is across the street. The applicant will speak to that. This is as you leave the property looking further up Oak Plains Road. Just a little further back, property is on the left there. And here's the property in question. The TVA lines, you can't build under them, and it's just adjacent to the request. And this is the neighbor to the left, I believe. And here's the property again. Very level tract, and they're rezoning just the middle 2.5 acres. The larger parcel surrounds it, so it's going to be a portion of this being zoned, not all of it. Planning staff recommends disapproval in this case. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the adopted land use plan, but the proposed C2 general commercial district permits uses that are out of character with the surrounding agricultural and single-family uses in the area. Commercial zoning classifications ideally are located at strategic intersections to enhance their commercial and economic potential, and adequate infrastructure serves the site. However, a fire hydrant will be required within 300 feet if this development reaches site plan approval. That's per the county fire chief. Planning Commission recommended approval. So staff disapproval, Planning Commission approval on this one.
Any questions of Mr. Tyndall for CZ 17, 2019? Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. We'll now go into public hearing.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Pritchard.
Thank you. Mr. Tyndall, is this going to be used in conjunction with that company that's operating out there?
The applicant's stated interest is to put up a contractor shop. I think that's a fair question for them when they come up here during the public session, though.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Tyndall, before we, Commissioner Woodruff?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions. The staff recommend disapproval, and the planning commission recommend approval. Am I right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Why would they recommend approval and the staff recommend disapproval? Because the reason I asked that question is because I believe staff have the elements to go out and look and research and do all of the things necessary to say what should be there. Do you know why they recommend approval?
This happens a couple times a year, whether it's in the city or what you have here is when staff goes out, all we have to operate off is the application or the information that the applicant had given us prior to. And I think when you have open public meeting and applicant can come and speak for an application or folks can speak against it, additional information sometimes can come out that may change a board's mind.
So this is normal for one to approve and one to disapprove?
Not abnormal.
Okay. So we are trying to mix commercial with residential property, with loud noises and everything else that goes on in commercial property with I guess, single-family homes.
This area is pretty rural. There are homes in the area. This lot has a TVA line over it, as I showed you in the pictures. We just caution, as always, regardless of what it's zoned, regardless of an intent, 20 years from now, if that use is no longer needed, this could always be something else that's approved in that zone. So staff typically will take more of that longer-term view, which is why I think disapproval came up. And based on the stated intent, that sometimes can change a commissioner.
Yeah. I'm just asking the question because next month or next year, we may come back and say that this has already been approved for residential, and now we have residential and commercial all tied together, and we got complaints. So that's my question, the reason for asking that question. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Tyndall? All right. We will now go into public hearing to hear any comments regarding these two zoning cases. Just remind the folks that do want to speak in favor of or against these zoning cases to please give us your name and your address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. First, CZ 16-2019. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this application?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Mark Riggins, and I reside at 814 Branch Bend Road. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Woodards, and I want to start out by saying how much we appreciate everyone showing up tonight in support of our zoning case. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. But all kidding aside, as Mr. Tyndall stated, this case causes no adverse effect to the surrounding community. There's been a mobile home on this tract since the 80s. And there are many scattered up and down through Indian Creek Road and throughout the community. The Woodards simply would like to remove a single-wide mobile home and bring in a new double-wide and place it on a foundation. And the only reason they're here is basically a compliance case. They are 7/100 short of having the 1.5 acre requirement, meeting that for ag zoning. So that's why they're here for EM1. As Mr. Tyndall also stated, there's been no negative comments from the public surrounding in the area. We humbly ask for your support in approving this zoning request, and I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Riggins? Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of CZ 16, 2019? Anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ 16, 2019? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in favor of CZ 17, 2019, application of Neely Revocable Living Trust, Edwin and Charity Neely?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for the time to come talk with you about our request. We're engineering and construction contractor, and we operate primarily from Fort Campbell area to East Nashville. And this actual location is very close to our residence. I live across the street, quarter of a mile from this location. We chose it for our contractor shop primarily because of its convenience for our construction services. We do care very much about our neighbors and our community, and certainly I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions you guys have about what our intent is. But it's strictly to try to be in compliance with your zoning ordinance. Technically, if we have construction equipment, it's supposed to be housed on commercial property. I'm sure you can find multiple cases where that's not the case in the county. We want to comply. We do care about our neighbors. We did reach out to the neighbors to the north and the south to explain what we're trying to do in prep for this, and also we care about what they want to see out there. My wife wouldn't let me do anything crazy. She'd run me off before she'd let me do anything otherwise. We did try to only rezone 2.5 of this 12-acre tract. We tried to locate the zoning in the center of that ag, so we have an ag buffer on either side from either neighbor, as well as from the back. We are directly across the street from the substation, Oak Plains CMC substation. We have 4.5 acres of this 12-acre tract that is already taken up by the high voltage power line. We don't think it would be very, very useful for residential if you wanted to, just because of the proximity to the substation and the power line. But it is very convenient for us. We know the planned growth area. It may not be in that for the county, but it's absolutely in our best interest to locate somewhere in this vicinity because of our service area. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have about this. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I'm curious, the contractor shop, what kind of equipment would you be storing?
We actually have a mix of both agricultural and track hose, backhoes, things like that. But everything is required to be stored indoors. We're not allowed to store materials or anything outdoors. That would require an M1 zoning, and we wouldn't want to see it. That's why we wouldn't ask our neighbors to look at it. So we're wanting to locate everything indoors.
Okay, so we're not talking about any large trucks or anything like that, just ordinary contracting equipment, farm equipment, that type of thing?
We are an industrial contractor. We do primarily industrial commercial construction, but we don't have very large track hose. Most of the ones we have, you could tow with a 1-ton truck. But, we are growing, and if we ever get into the situation where we require more equipment, we'll probably look at another area.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you for coming here and, taking the opportunity to explain and expound on what your plan is. I'd just like to ask, do you have any plans on storing anything else or building anything else in that area?
No, the residual portion of that track, we intend to stay just, maintain it as ag, as a buffer. We have no plans for it. It technically is not, it's a wet site, so we're very limited what we could do if we wanted to. And I don't think we would ever try to do anything that required a lot of sanitary sewer, because I don't think we could do it on that site.
Any other questions of Mr. Neely? Thank you, sir. Is anyone else in the audience to speak on behalf of CZ 17, 2019? Commissioners, we will now go to our resolutions. Oh, Commissioner Riccone.
Thank you. And I certainly understood the Planning Commission's recommendation for disapproval. Like you, we heard Mr. Neely speak to the Planning Commission, and I voted for it. I actually made the motion for approval on that one. And I'll tell you, just to kind of address the question that was presented, was it's across the street from a substation. Mr. Neely has a built-in buffer. Mr. Neely lives in the area. There is some C2. It's burdened by TVA power lines. I don't know what other highest and best use it could be. I don't think it would be residential. And so that's just to kind of answer your question. I don't think the Planning Commission board always goes with the staff's recommendation. I think typically it'd probably be 95%, but this one, that was my rationale, and that's why I voted for it.
The staff, if the staff had to make a choice tonight, what do you think they would say? Approval or disapproval? Jeff? Is that a fair question?
Mr. Woodruff, if
is that a fair question? I know you may not be able to answer that by yourself, but I just...
Yeah,
okay.
I think what Mr. Tyndall said, the staff's recommendation is on the report.
Okay.
All right, we'll now go to our resolutions. Our first resolution is Resolution 1911-1, resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners approving amendments to the 2019-2020 school budget. Any questions, Commissioners, regarding 1911-1? Resolution 1911-2 is a resolution to request return and conveyance of surplus property from the Clarksville-Montgomery County School System to Montgomery County. Any questions on Resolution 1911-2? Resolution 1911-3 is a resolution to modify district rules for application of beer laws pursuant to TCA 57-5101. Any questions regarding 1911-3? Remember, you got to raise your hand. Commissioner Hodges. I think the resolution is 0.
0 footage,
Yes, sir.
and we can do that.
Yes, sir. It actually went back to the Rules Committee. If you recall, we had it on our agenda last month. We pulled it because it had not gone before the Rules Committee. It went back to the Rules Committee, and it passed from the Rules Committee at 0. There was some discussion about a different distance, but ultimately it was passed at 0.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding 1911-3? 1911-4 is a resolution to allow prepayments of real and personal property taxes in the office of the Montgomery County Trustee. Any questions? 1911-4. All right, 1911-5 is initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $130,700,000 federally tax exempt and or federally taxable general obligation bonds of Montgomery County, Tennessee. Any questions regarding 1911-5? 1911-6, resolution authorizing the issuance of federally tax exempt or federally taxable general obligation bonds of Montgomery County, Tennessee in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $130,700,000 in one or more series, making provisions for the issuance, sale, and payment of said bonds establishing the terms thereof and the disposition of proceeds therefrom, providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of principal of, premium, if any, and interest on the bonds, and authorizing the execution and delivery of an intergovernmental agreement relating to said bonds and a multi-purpose event center within the county. Any questions regarding 1911-6? Commissioner Bill, Commissioner Knight, I'll get you next. Don't let me forget.
Thank you. I just want to make my comment pretty short and sweet because I know everybody's that's here has been waiting for this to come up. So this issue has been a very polarizing and very emotional issue for a lot of people. There have been lots of going back and forth on social media. I've experienced it myself. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands, this is very important, that you can be for the event center and still be okay with it going to public referendum. And I think the tone out there seems to be that if you're for the event center, you automatically have to be against all citizens voting on this. And I just want to make the point that that is not true. And that's pretty much all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Excuse me, Commissioner Knight.
I just wanted to ask the question just as a point of clarification as to, if possible, if you could provide to everybody why general obligation bonds are used.
I'll be happy to answer it now, but I can provide it to you in writing. When we were looking at the financing of this, we met with our financial advisor, we met with Mr. Harvey, we met with our bond attorney as well, and we looked at all the different ways that we could fund this. And two things that, in my opinion, drove it to a GO bond. First and foremost, it was the cheapest route to go. Secondly, if we would have gone with revenue bonds, there's not any provisions in state law that would allow the public, if the public chose to petition for a referendum, that provision is not available for a revenue bond. And so to be transparent, we felt, number one, again, first and foremost, it was the most financially sound thing to do, but secondly, it gives the public the opportunity to request a petition if they follow the guidelines set in the state statute. Anyone else? Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. I mentioned this, I believe, last month when we talked about setting up the Sports Authority. I'm not necessarily against the impact myself, but when I look at it from a financial aspect, I believe that we are rushing way too fast towards this direction. I think we need to take a little more time, carefully consider what we're doing before we actually leap in this direction. So I would urge caution. I'll ask next week for a delay, just a month delay. If we can defer it for a month, just want to be prepared for that. But I would ask for caution. This will be the single biggest expense that the county's ever endeavored. I'm not doubting the merit of it, but I do think we need to be cautious, we need to be careful, and we need to be prudent. So I would appreciate your understanding on that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pritchard?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, it is my understanding that the facility itself is still within the 105 million range as far as building goes, that the 130 million in bonds includes a few other things besides just building the facility. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. The 130 million is for the multipurpose event center, and it obviously reads, and there's a lot of language in the two resolutions, but it reads to the fact not to exceed. as we briefed each commissioner in our meetings that we had that were public meetings, we showed a scenario of $105 million, and we showed a scenario of $120 million. Our goal still is to be at $105 million. We have I think it's next week, we have a meeting where we have 100% schematic design. They are working on an updated estimate from that now, and so we should have a better price then, but there's not any other projects inside this $130 million.
Okay, I was just questioning, just to make sure. Also, and I'm going to ask you just a quick question. When we built the jail, did you have an idea about how much we spent on the jail?
No, ma'am, I don't. Now, I don't know historically if there's a commissioner or an employee that might remember what we spent on the jail. I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking it's 54 million, 56 million. That rings a bell, but I don't know that. I can get you that information. I'll share it with all of you.
I was asking because at that point in time when we had to build the jail to the size and placement of where it's at now, we did not go to referendum on that. We actually just built it. I feel like at this point in time, we've waited almost 40 years for the city of Clarksville to have a functioning downtown, and I think that this MPEC is going to add a lot to the downtown and to the vibrancy and growth of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions? Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to that by once again saying, who says that you cannot be for the event center and still be okay with it going to referendum? Who said that that wasn't possible? And I do actually have one more question. Do we have a signed final contract with Austin Peay?
No, sir.
And with the Powers Management Company?
No, sir.
Okay, well, with all due respect, back in May, you told me that we would have that before you brought the bond resolution to us.
Well, we don't have it as of yet. I know Mr. Harvey met with Austin Peay last week. I think the Predators are here that they're pretty obviously want to be a part of this. And I'm not going to rush into signing a contract for tenants that I know, number one, that are going to be there, and a management company, number two, that's going to be willing to manage it until all the details are ironed out. As I explained to you and the other 20 commissioners that set in on the one-in-ones, and I don't know if I told you this exactly, but there's details, and I use the example that the Predators may be planning on cleaning the bathrooms as the managing partner twice a day. And Austin Peay, as the tenant, may want them cleaned 7 times a day. Those are the details that we're working out. Until those details get worked out, I'm not going to bring a contract forward. I'm not going to sign one. I'm not going to bring one forward for the commission until all the details are worked out. Any other questions? All right, 1911-7 is a resolution to establish smoke-free guidelines on all Montgomery County government property. Any questions regarding 1911-7? I'll let you tell them that because I don't know exactly what.
All I was going to say is this resolution went through the committee process as always. The last committee that sees it is the Budget Committee. It has been revised since the Budget Committee. I told the Budget Committee there were still some unknowns out there, so it has been revised since the Budget Committee.
Any questions regarding 1911-7? All right, under new business, this will require a motion to suspend the rules and without objection in our informal process. Commissioner Harper, do you have objection to it? So technically, we have a motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second, Commissioner Riccone? All right. If there's, without taking a vote, does anyone object to it? So 1911-8 is a resolution amending the budget of the Montgomery County Purchasing Department for the purpose of entering into a lease agreement for an envelope printer. This is a piece of equipment that went down in the last, Jeff, when was it? In the last few weeks, and it's something that department uses all the time. They print all of our envelopes, so it's obviously a financial thing, and so that'll be on our agenda. We'll again have to suspend the rules next Tuesday night. Under any questions under 1911-8? Under old business, we have nothing. Under our reports, see our reports that are listed. You'll also see the reports that are filed. We do have, and I've got a list here. I'm sorry, I skipped the Montgomery County mayor, the mayor nominations. And they are Community Corrections. Debbie Vance, parole officer, is nominated to serve another 2-year term expiring November 2021. Ann Kroger, probation officer, nominated to serve another 3-year term to expire November 2022. Mary Davila, nonprofit, nominated to serve a 2-year term expiring November 2021. Michael Williams, nonprofit, nominated to serve another 2-year term expiring November 2021. Tony Eldridge, private citizen, nominated to serve another 2-year term to expire November 2021. Patrice Hanna, private citizen, 2-year term to expire November 2021. And Jason White, private citizen, term to expire November 2021. Under the Court Center Committee, Walker Woodruff, nominated to replace Joe Creek for a 3-year term to expire November 2022. And under our Veteran Services Organization, Tangi Smith has been filling the unexpired term of Robert Nichols and is eligible to serve a 4-year term expiring November 2023. And Walker Woodruff has been filling the unexpired term of John Genish and is eligible to serve a 4-year term expiring November 2023. I apologize for skipping that. Under our announcements, the Clarksville-Montgomery County Veterans Day Parade will take place on Saturday, November the 9th, with pre-parade ceremonies set for 9:00 a.m. in front of the historic courthouse. They'll be on the 3rd Street side over here. Another reminder that the Clarksville Area Ministerial Association is holding a special breakfast to recognize and pray for our elected officials on Tuesday, November the 12th at First Presbyterian Church. If you're interested in attending that, please see Shelley if you haven't already. And then the Clarksville Christmas Parade will be held on Saturday, December the 7th. And the county will have a float entry, and commissioners, you are all invited to ride on the float. Tennessee Achieves, commissioners and members of the audience, this is a great program that our state has that allows a last chance scholarship for all of our graduating high school seniors. And the mentorship program is in need of 100 additional volunteers in Montgomery County to participate in the program. The deadline to sign up is December the 8th, 2019. Contact Michelle Newell for additional information, or you can go to their website. It's TN Achieves to sign up. And I would encourage you, if you've never done it, to do it. I've done it the last 2 years, and I will sign up again to do it this year. And then if you know of an adult or a youth volunteer who you think should be honored with a Governor's Volunteer Stars Award, please contact Michelle Newell, our public information officer. And lastly, I just want to give a big shout out to Clarksville Department of Electricity, Cumberland Electric Membership Corporation, our highway department, our street department, all the contract crews, all the private organizations that came in and provided resources, our nonprofits that provided food for all the folks that were without power after our wind event last Saturday. I know Commissioner Pritchard went 6 or 7 days without power, but she was out just helping her neighbors. And I just think we all owe you and everybody that helped with this event a huge debt of gratitude. So a special thanks to those folks. And with that being said, Commissioner Leverett.
May I have a question? I hope because this is informal, we can go back to something that I skipped. And I didn't realize it until I went back over my notes. I want to look at, again, if I can, Resolution 1911-2.
Commissioner, I had prefer, just because of the order of the meeting,
Sure.
that you just hold those questions till next Tuesday night, if you're okay with that.
Okay, and I'll, not really, but okay.
Well, yeah, and I say this with all due respect.
understand.
There is an order to the process.
I understand.
And you'll be afforded every right. Anybody that you want to call and ask a question regarding that, you'll be able to
And
call them to the
My
podium.
apologies, I kind of missed it, and I just went back in my notes and realized I did have a question about
Well,
it.
I thought you may have missed something like in our announcements, our report. I didn't know you
No,
were going to go
no.
back to the first of the agenda.
Okay,
But thank you,
I'll-
ma'am, and I
I'll
hope you
wait.
understand.
I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're adjourned. Thank y'all.